continue with the next charge of the Jewish Holocaust. I'd like to pass over to the prosecutors for the prosecution now. You have 10 minutes to present your case.
Adolf Hitler is completely responsible for the deaths in the Jewish Holocaust because he killed 6 million Jews in only 6 years. So you can get an idea. I'm going to do a little introduction. So his feelings against the Jews started when he was younger because a Jewish doctor wasn't able to cure his mother, and so she died. And it accumulated when his grandmother was raped by a Jew. After that, he started blaming all the Jews for all the evil in the world. And after that, he blamed them for the shameful defeat in the First World War. When he came to power, he developed the final solution, which was a plan to exterminate all the Jews. He started applying legislations which were anti-Jewish. After that finished in the Night of the Broken Glass. He installed ghettos after that, and that made them completely isolated. The Nazis started dying because of the poor conditions, the lack of food, and the cold. Lots of Jews died. In the ghettos, they started even mass shooting, and they installed gas vans to kill them. The ones that survived this later died in the death camps and in the trains going to the death camps. The final step of the final solution was taking them to all these concentration camps. In the concentration camps, apart from killing them in big groups, they even did experiments with them. They started freezing them to see what happened if they put them in a cube full of ice for 5 hours. After that, they experimented on thousands of twins, and to see to discover how multiple deaths worked. Another experiment was testing a vaccine against tuberculosis on them. So then lots of people died because of that. After that, they even did transplant experiments, and this caused many deaths because all of them failed. In 1941, the concentration camps were installed to get rid of all the Jews in large amounts. All the various ways they wanted to kill them was punishment cells, flagellation, slave labor quarries, extermination camps, gassing traps, cold showers, bleeding, hunger, and mass shooting. There were so many more that we can't even imagine. But what they all had in common was the tremendous suffering. Hitler wanted them to have a painful and slow death, and so we can see how evil he was.
Hitler started the main what they mainly used was the gas chamber. They first separated women and children, and then the babies, pregnant women, and disabled people, and old people were the ones who first died. The Nazis, guided by Hitler, thought that the Jewish people were useless for working, and they killed them first. They deceived so many people, telling them they were going to go to a shower, and instead carbon monoxide came through the shower tube and killed them. As my colleague Francis said, this was a slow and painful death. Sometimes they even used Cyclone B, which was even worse than carbon monoxide, and that was more painful for them. After the gas chambers, they brought them to the crematoriums, and they used the bones, the Jewish bones, to create a soap, and they also made lampshades with their skin. They cremated 700 corpses, but in big concentration camps like Auschwitz, they cremated 24,000 a day. Another sinister thing they did to Jews was the trains they used to transport them. They traveled in horrible conditions. In a wagon where 50 people would normally have fitted, they squashed 200 people in. They gave them nothing to eat or drink. This meant many people died on the way to the concentration camps. They also played music in the concentration camps, where they had to sing and to march in the rhythm, so they got really tired. The Jews that didn't die in the gas chambers died by starvation. Other forms of torture were dark cells where they died of suffocation. One of the biggest concentration camps was the Mannhausen camp, where it was settled in 1938, and they started with 300 prisoners. 1 year later, they had 2,772. So Hitler was responsible of all of these things because he was the one who said that these concentration camps needed to kill so many people. He was the one who signed the approval to terminate all these 6 million lives. If he hadn't decided this wouldn't have happened.
Thank you for the intervention. I'll pass over to the lawyer's response now.
Now, what the prosecution is trying to tell is that a sole person, Hitler, was responsible of the mass murder of 6 million people. How can one person kill 6 million people? Not only Hitler can be declared guilty of this massive execution, but also the common German citizen, people who worked in the concentration camps. Hitler did not make the Holocaust happen on his own. Many Germans contributed to the final solution or benefit from it. Ordinary people, civil servants, doctors, lawyers, judges, soldiers, and railroad workers played a role in the Holocaust. In addition, of course, to the SS men and the German government, the Nazi Party, and the officials who implemented the policies that aimed to persecute and murder all the European Jews. No one was obliged to take part in it, and all the involved could have avoided Jews' execution. The connection between the nation's actions and the unbelievable amount of Jews killed is notable. What we're trying to say is that the weight of such crime cannot solely lay on Hitler. German citizens gladly took part in the torture. SS men and everyday German were involved in the Holocaust. To start with, one of the Nazi party members, Himmler, he was Hitler's closest subordinate. He was the key official responsible for conceiving and overseeing the implementation of the final solution. He was the main leader of the extermination program. This man took Hitler's orders to the worst case scenario possible. With hatred itself, Himmler managed to start up the elimination of the Jews.
After Nazis taking over power, Goebbels pressured Hitler to take action against Jews. He worked together with Himmler and Göring. In Berlin, he added anti-Semitic legalization against their rights. This included their intervention in economy and social life, such as such as entering in cinemas, zoos, or synagogues, which further led to ghettos. Heydrich, which Hitler called him the man with iron heart, was one of the most important architects of the Holocaust. Following Himmler and Göring's orders in terms of Jew deportation, execution, and imprisonment. He was one of the organizers of the Kristallnacht. The night he actually sent a telegram to all the SS and SI and Gestapo members to attend and gave them orders of what had to be done. After this night, 20,000 Jews were sent to concentration camps, and this movement continued throughout all the world. He was responsible for many departures of Jews and other prisoners and designed the gas camps. He, together with Himmler, was to plan many of the tortures that occurred in the concentration camps.
As you may know, Hermann Göring was not only the successor of Hitler, he also imposed a mechanism of repression against Jewish, and furthermore, he accepted and firmed the final solution with Himmler and Heinrich. Hitler didn't take part in the final solution, which is the extermination of all Jewish, because there is no official document firmed by Hitler in this case. And also Martin Bormann, he became a shadowy but extremely powerful presence in the Third Reich. He could manipulate Hitler's illness. He also controlled all the acts of legislation and all party appointments. He had big influence in domestic policy questions concerning internal security. He was major advocate of the persecution and extermination of Jews, and he played a big role in expanding the Jew labor program.
Fritz Sokol this man was responsible for providing forced laborers to meet Germany's increasing production needs, war needs. Under his authority, the Germans deported millions of forced laborers from the occupied territories to Germany. This person exploited the Jews to death and was famous for his death tortures. He was Germany's plenipotentiary general for labor mobilization. As such, he secured slave laborers from the Soviet Union and other occupied territories and forcibly relocated more than 5 million people from their homes in occupied territories to Germany. He bears responsibility for the extermination of tens of thousands of Jewish workers in Poland. What the prosecution is saying is that Hitler was the one and only responsible for the Holocaust. But isn't this man and all the rest we've mentioned responsible?
Going back to his childhood, Hitler was a victim of physical abuse, coming from a very controlling father. This created him a feeling of loneliness and weakness, which developed to strength and anger, and sometimes even aggression, so thereby a phenomenon of anxiety. Hitler, according to his anxiety disorder, is known to be suffered not only from chronic anxiety but also insomnia and related somatic symptoms. And this is pain and fatigue, causes emotional distress and physical problem function. His brain, as previously said, didn't function as the others did. Once in power, his anxiety problems became even harder and even bigger, and for this he had to get a personal physician, which helped him to manage his problems. This physician made him take various medications like sedating barbiturates, which are drugs which act with the nervous system by depressing the system, and stimulating amphetamine, which causes the brain to lose sensitivity. At times, Hitler had episodes which we can see when he talks, when he gives speeches, of anger and emotional collapse, and this affected his career.
You have 1 minute left.
The final diagnosis was that he was a borderline paranoid and with schizophrenia and hysterical megalomaniac. This means that Hitler was not in a full conception of reality. He was also surrounded with people he knew and which could act with his illnesses and could influence in his decisions.
So, respect to the case that we're talking about the Holocaust, I want to clarify that Hitler is Hitler is the one who came with the idea that the Jewish people can't be alive, which that means that there must be a extermination for it, and he like had the idea of having the concentration camps, which that caused a lot of death. Also, the power that Hitler had about Nazi, what Hitler did was due to what happened in the Second World War, that Germany didn't do as well as it was hoped, and Hitler blamed Jewish people, and that's unfair to clarify the society as not being guilty, but being guilty because of the Romanies and the Jewish people.
So Hitler was actually the one that instigated it. So it is, like, even it was the Nazis' fault, but he was the one that gave all the orders and to get them killed and everything. So it always comes down to Hitler. It was always his responsibility, like, because all these 6 million died in 6 years, and so that is his responsibility. Respect to what you said about Parkinson, if I know, Parkinson he didn't have when he was a child, it came later, so that isn't an excuse for 6 million deaths, because Parkinson, it started light, and so that isn't an excuse for so many deaths.
In respect to what you have said, Hitler wasn't the one who killed the people, but he made the Jewish people work for the SS, and they forced them to work in factories, and they also forced them to get the corpse and put them in the crematoriums. So Hitler didn't do it, but he forced Jewish people to kill other Jewish people. And Hitler gave the approval of all of the things that you have said, and he had all the ideas for these things.
Also, the idea about the concentration camps, the Mauthausen camp, the camps that there were, Hitler, what he had in mind, it was the extermination of Jews, and also he had in mind that the annihilation of so many people, it could be quite expensive, so he came with the retribution of having the way of doing gas chambers and camps.
You said that the ideas of the Jews had to be killed came from Hitler. Well, it really didn't. These ideas came from books and magazines he read when he was in jail. Then Hitler didn't give the direct orders, Himmler did. And another person who did was Sauckel, who had the authority in the concentration camps. And really, does a leader know what's going on, knows everything that's going on in a country, if he has other important things to care about? For example, how can he know everything that's going on every concentration camp if he has other things to worry about? He was a country leader. The only thing he had to care about wasn't the Holocaust. He had much more important things to say and to worry about.
When talking about the concentration camps and the torture made in them, this was not made by Hitler. Hitler did not design the camps, Hitler did not design the tortures that happened in there. Actually, Himmler and Heydrich and other SS leaders were the ones that took most part in this. And what about the mental illness, I didn't mean to say that Parkinson was the reason he was mentally ill. He was physically ill, Parkinson. He was mentally ill, not Parkinson. I wanted to say that he couldn't actually think in clearly when he had anxiety times, and he was manipulated by his co-workers. So,
as my partner said, we're not saying that Parkinson was the cause of that situation. We're saying that Hitler was not in his right mind. We know today that when two family members have a child, the child can be affected, okay, because Hitler's mother and father were cousins. And we know today that certain gases can affect your mind. Hitler fought in the First World War, where he was gassed.
I'll pass over to the prosecutors now. You have 2 minutes to state your conclusion.
Okay, so as you said, as a conclusion, I don't want to end up this as a case of a debate. I want to explain Hitler facts and why we are against Hitler. We are here today, the day after the Holocaust Day. Yesterday was the 27th of January. It was the day that, in the 27th of January in 1945, it was the last camp that was saved by Soviets. And that's why every year there's this day that they pray for the deaths. Okay? I want to say also that Hitler did not only kill 6 million people, Jewish people, he also killed 2 million Romani people. He killed 9,000 homosexuals. He also killed 2,500 mixed classes, and also he killed other people which weren't guilty by mistake. Yes. I can understand that there's a point about what Hitler did and what Hitler problems had, the problems that Hitler had, sorry. But the fact that Hitler killed so many people can be solved. I don't know. I would say that I want to say that the kills that Hitler did with concentration camps can be justified.
Thank you.
When in many other cases in history, when a person has a mental illness, they cannot be totally concerned of what they're doing. In this case, as we've stated, Hitler had a mental illness, and we think that he should not be taken to prison or killed. He should be taken to a mental center, and he should be cured. But because, yes, he killed 60 million Jews, but he was not alone, is what we're trying to state. He had other things to worry about, and he had many, many followers. A leader without his followers is not a leader.
And why did all the workers of the concentration camps or anybody who was affected or involved in the Holocaust follow the orders if they were optional? Why did they obey? Why did they obey them if no penalty were to be enforced for them? And why did they continue if they knew in their hearts it was an unforgivable act? That's what I want to say. Not just Hitler has to carry the blame of the Holocaust.
Thank you.